Hello, this is Minder Chen. Today we're going to discuss profiling customer. We're going to introduce customer profile and persona as two major approach in profiling a customer for a startup business. And here let's get a kind of bird's eye view of the issue. There's a very good book on entrepreneurships by Bill Olley called Disciplined Entrepreneurships in 24 Steps. You are encouraged to actually get a copy of the book and study it. It is consistent with some of the methodology that we have introduced in our class. Let me just quickly go through the 24 steps. Okay, if you want to know the details, certainly you need to study the book. And step one, segment the market segmentation. We mentioned this in one of our lecture in market sizing. Okay, you need to kind of pick a segment of the market that you want to target for your product and service. And you need to further narrow down to the so-called beachhead market, the much more focused market that you're going to tackle when you start it. It's a subset of the segments that you have identified in step one. And then the next step is really the topic for this this subject area, is try to profile the end user that you have in mind. And once you know the end user's profile for the beachhead market, then you can estimate the size of the beachhead, the total addressable market size for the beachhead, which is not the TAM, total addressable market, but the size of the beachhead in comparison to the total addressable market. And furthermore, you will build the persona. So you can see that customer profile, end user profile, and persona show up in two different steps. Okay, this actually kind of tells us the customer profile is a kind of broader description of the customer, and persona is a much more a little bit more detail and interesting way of describe the customer. We haven't defined persona yet, so if it's the first time you hear about the term, please be a little bit patient. We will introduce in detail because this is really the main subject area for this lectures. And you could, in step 6, try to develop the kind of use case over the life cycle of a customer who may interact with your product and services. This is similar to some extent like the job to be done analysis that we have mentioned earlier. And based on the use case or scenario, how the user will use your product over a certain process, then you can develop high-level specification for your product and services. And based on that, you can kind of quantify the value proposition of your product and services. However, when you really need to build your product, one way to do it is instead of try to target many users out there that you wish to acquire, you suggest to actually to try to just identify a few customers, real and willing customer who are willing to pay you. Here it's suggested like next 10 customer. We're talking about real customer, not fictional ones. And then by closely interact with them, you would further refine or define the core feature of your product and services. And with that product service feature, you can chart your competitive positions from a strategic viewpoint. And once you position your product and services well, then you could determine like who are the so-called decision-making unit, which is step 12, because you need to think about who will make the buying decisions. The person who buy it may not be the person who use it. However, most likely you have to deal with the end user, but at the same time, you do need to aware of the decision maker who are making the purchasing decisions. And once you understand their decision process of a decision maker for the purchasing, you can map out your customer acquisition process. Okay, what goes through their mind, what information they need, what feature they're looking for during that acquisition process. And once you understand that, then we can develop a follow-on TAM, which is, in this case, maybe a little bit bigger than the beachhead market. Okay, estimate the size. You would design the business model. Okay, we talk about Alex Osterwald's business model, and this is time to design it. And certainly, I would suggest that alternative to this 24 step is you may start with the design of the business model in the first place. And in the business model, if you still remember the business model, which has 9 components, and just like what I'm drawing here, just very quickly, this is your value proposition, this is your customer segment, and this is kind of your revenue, this is your cost. And you're building some customer relationships here, and this is the channel that you reach out to your customer. So in the context of this lecture, we're mainly talking about the right-hand side of the business model canvas, and particularly the customer segment. Using customer profile and persona to describe the customer segment, and this would certainly lead us to the definition of our product's positionings. And once you figure this out, then you need to actually determine your pricing framework or pricing strategy, which is tied to your revenue in the business model. And also in calculating your revenue in the long term, you need to understand the lifelong value. Sometimes it is called customers' long time value. Okay, so it's LTV, not LTC. Okay, it's the customer's long time value. Because sometimes it's very expensive for you to acquire a customer. You're actually losing money on the first few sales to a new customer. You should see that as a customer acquisition cost, and which is actually step 9. It's the cost of customer acquisition. We call it COCA. Okay, but in the long term, if you can retain the customer, they keep coming back to purchase additional products and services, then over time, that accumulated customer long time value would allow you to kind of recover the original customer acquisition cost and to show profitability of a customer over the customer's lifetime and doing business with you. So you also need to map out the scaling model process, which means how you're going to scale from that original beachhead market, very, very narrow subset of the target segment, to a broader marketplace. And with all of that, your business model will be in pretty good shape. And it's time sooner than later that you should identify some of the key assumptions in your business model, and you need to test those key assumptions. And in doing so, in the real world testing, you do need to have so-called minimum viable product. We used to call it minimum viable product, but in this discipline entrepreneurship's model in 24 step, it is called minimum viable business product. Okay, it's conceptually it's very similar. So we're going to just use our traditional term called MVP. So you need to define the MVP, because only when you have an MVP, then you can really go to the real world, get out of the building, and then test the key assumption that you have identified with the MVP. And so you can either confirm your assumption in your business model, or you would find out that some of the assumptions that you had made may not be true. Then you will go back and revise your business model and rebuild your revise your MVP, revise your business model, develop another version of MVP, and continuing testing the existing or the updated assumptions. Okay. Here, step 23 is show the dog would eat the dog food, which means people are willing to pay for your product and services. If not, it's time to go back. That's the feedback loop that we have been talking about, which is very common in startup business. And if you find the so-called product market fit and verify that, which means you confirm your business model, then it's time to develop a full rollout plan for your product and services. Okay, so this 24 step doesn't have to be you don't have to go through this step by step in this sequence. You can kind of change the sequencing and sometimes concurrently working on several steps, but it kind of break down some of the steps that you have to work on when you start your business. So it's a very good approach for us to refer to. In the same book, it mentioned that if we step back, people start a new venture sometimes because they are technologists, they have developed a breakthrough technology, and or they have seen a potential of a breakthrough technology and decided, have an idea how that may be used. Okay. The third potential kind of entrepreneur is the one who have a passion of certain area and decided to look for a possible solution in the technology and create a business model to serve a certain segment of the users. However, no matter which way you came about to start your new ventures, the single most important condition for any business to be successful is that you do need to find paying customers. And in order to find the paying customers, certainly you can look at your product and see who is willing to pay for it, but that's kind of from your company's perspective. Okay, you build your company, you build your product, and try to find out who are the customers who are willing to pay for it. But the best way to do it is you want to see the world through the eye of the customers. Okay, so this is kind of approach that we would recommend. It's kind of human-centered design. When we say human-centered, the human is the end user, it is the customer. So let's first introduce customer profile. Customer profile, um, we need to profile the end user, who are the individual who will use your product or service. The end user is usually a member of a household. That's kind of in the context of business to consumer situation, or it could be an organization that purchase your product. This is more a business to business scenario. And we did mention DMU, which is decision making unit, who are the individual who decide whether the customer will buy your product or service. And the DMU consists of a champion, is the person who want the customer to purchase the product. Often they are the end user who are kind of suffering. They're looking for a solution. And you do need to have a champion in an organization to promote your product and services. And second is the primary economic buyer, who is the person who has authority to spend money to purchase the product, to authorize the purchase of the product. And sometimes this could be the end users. There are other decision-making unit members who are potentially the influencers, the person who may have the veto power, which may be the purchasing department, and so on and so forth. For instance, like at my university, all the IT equipment purchase has to go through the IT department. They have a very strong influence and sometimes the veto power if we want to purchase some product which is not in their approved list of configuration of a PC, of a Mac, then you need to kind of go through a special request to make that happen. Okay. So these are the people who have swayed or direct control over the decision of the primary decision economic buyer here. Okay. So let's look at example of a customer profile. So there are several approaches that we can use to segment a market. Remember market segmentation? You first segment the market into a different segmentation, and then you will target a segment or a few segments that you would like to approach with your product and services. So this is kind of the traditional segmentation approach. You can segment the market by profiling customer based on their geographic, where they're located, demographic, like their age, their gender. Okay, that's age and gender. Sometimes socioeconomics, such as their income level, psychographic, their preference, what they have in mind, sometimes a little bit of their lifestyle, their behavior. For instance, they're very health conscious, exercise a lot, and certainly they're all influenced by the cultures and also the benefits your potential customer are looking for. So you can document this customer profile using a simple bullet listing features such as the one showing here, including gender, age, income, occupation, their educational level, the household size, and the stage, their stage in the family life cycle. In this case, the product and service that we try to offer are targeting both gender, people age 20 to 40, low income, they're professional, they got bachelor degree or higher in the tech field. The household size is 2 or more. Their stage in family life cycle is newlywed and or have just young kids. So this will be example of a customer profile. You can see that we're using kind of sometimes a range of income level, like low income is really a range of income level, a range of age group to identify customer profile. Another approach is very popular, particularly in the design community, in the design thinking approach, is what we call persona. I have a few slides. I will first try to clarify the term persona because it's very easily confused with customer profile that we have just discussed. Persona are imaginary, yet realistic and detailed description of specific. Okay, remember the keyword. They're very specific. They were talking about specific individual, but they are imaginary individual, almost like your imaginary friend. Okay, this is kind of your imaginary end user. However, they are representative of the users. They are representative users of your product or service. They provide a basis for design discussion. So when you have your team try to design the product and service, you will kind of try to relate the design of the product and service to the persona that you come up with through this process. And the persona allow you to kind of aggregate a lot of the data, user data, into a very focused and believable description of our primary user or audience. So creating persona give our design team a shorthand way of describing who you're building the things for, you're building the product or service for. So they represent kind of your key user. They also give you a focus in your product and service design process. The persona are created from the site visit data. When I say site visit, like field study. Okay, you study in the field of some potential user, identify some archetypes of the users, and then create persona out of it. So it is a design tool to ensure that the product and service that we are designing are designed for the real users. And this approach is pioneered by Alan Cooper. I believe he used to work at Microsoft. He's a pioneer of the software interaction design. And he defines persona as a hypothetical individual, okay, that's kind of imaginary, that takes on a characteristic of a real user, okay. And this is almost like a writer writing a novel who will create characters, and then that character in the mind of the author of the novel, it's like almost like a real person. And so sometimes that character may have a life of its own when you kind of imagine you're interacting with those character, in this case the persona in your design. Okay, so persona represent real people throughout the process of designing a service or product. Persona are developed with a significant rigor and precision. Not just you make them up. We don't so much made up persona as we discover them as a byproduct of an investigation process. The field study that we mentioned is this investigation process. And certainly in your design process, you will find out that you need to know more about your personas, and then you will go back to the field to find out more about what you should add to your persona to accurately describe them for the purpose of design. Just look at an example of how we may document a persona in a simple example. And certainly you create a persona for the purpose of designing a product and service. In this context, we are designing a customer relationship management system, or CRM systems. So we have identified a number of persona. This is just one of them. There's a gentleman called Sammy, and we give Sammy kind of an archetype, which Sammy is a sales superhero. Okay, and it's 27 years old. Okay, we unlike customer profile, which will say, oh, 24 to 40 years old. Here it's very specific. Okay, that's the difference that you can tell. This is not a typical customer profile. This is a persona. And the rest of the information are also very specific. Okay, this is, by the way, this is not a real person, but this is kind of a composite picture of several real persons who are very similar. So you will create this persona to represent them. But this persona is described in a very specific way, a very specific individual who are imaginary. Got it? Okay, so Sammy has in sales since age 19. Wow, pretty experienced. Wow, have 8 years of experience. I love flashy gadget. Okay, Sammy's goal is stay number one as a number one sales. He tried to keep customers loyal to him or to the company, to the products. And he certainly wanted to exceed the quarterly sales total, so he got a lot of bonus. A lot of salespeople rely on bonus to generate comfortable income. However, this is his concerns or pains. Remember, customers' pains. Okay, it's a very high pressure work environment. He wants to sound smart. What does that mean? Certainly you can kind of speculate what that means. For instance, he's very knowledgeable about the products. He's very knowledgeable about his customers. But there's a lot of things to remember. So if you have a good CRM system, you can bring that information about customers to Sammy when he's ready to go to talk to the customer. That would make him sound smart. Okay, so this is kind of how you would use this concern, and then you say, oh, if we can offer this feature, then in our CRM system, that will make Sammy really sound smart. Okay, and he wants to drive the conversations his way. Okay, his way means buying our products. Okay, so your CRM system may need to provide some talking point to helping out. That would be a good way or feature to put in your CRM system. Okay, people share a good talking point. Here are some quotes. The quote may come from the field research. Say, it's all about making the sales. Okay, nothing should get in my way. Another quote is, it's all about setting high goals and then smashing them. Okay, got it? So I hope this persona help you to understand how to kind of create a simple persona. And then you can also attach a picture. The picture doesn't have to be a real person. Sometimes people just go on the web and find someone similar to what they have in mind and put it here. Let's take another crack of persona, because I think it's a little bit difficult concepts. A persona is an archetype, sometimes we use the term, of an organization's typical customer. And a persona is defined primarily by customer's goal. Okay, but the goal is related to when the customer interact with the product, which means when they use our product or services, what kind of goals they try to achieve. And and what kind of concern or pains that you try to alleviate for them. Okay. Once again, they're not a real person, but they're used to represent real user during the design process. And we typically produce about 3 to 8 personas. Okay, and one of the persona may be the so-called primary persona. Okay, they are best represented as narratives, which provide a persona with realistic characteristic. Just like before, the previous persona in the previous slide, it's a little bit simple, and here your persona can have a name, the age, the photo, the candy quote. We have all of that. Some personal information, their work environment, computer proficiency. You can add a lot of other things here. A lot of time has to be it has to be related to the product that this persona will interact with in that kind of scenario. So certain thing, for instance, if it's a computer product for a user, the computer proficiency of your persona would be nice things to know. Then you need to know whether you really need to make it super easy friendly or not. Okay, and persona, when you use it, evoke a strong sense of empathy. Remember, empathy is an important kind of principle in design thinking. And with the persona, your design team doesn't have to talk in their design discussion of an abstract customer profile. Instead, they actually say, "Oh, how would Sammy think about this feature?" Okay, that imaginary end user. Okay, they will just refer. By the time you finish your design, everybody knows Sammy like a real person. Okay, so this will facilitate a kind of user-centered design, help us to focus on the goals of our typical customer. So it's actually a very useful tool. Okay, once again, persona is a design tool. It's created out of the information you gather from actually talking to people during ethnographic research, field research. Okay. Let's look at quickly a case, a real case, and a few persona based on this case. And there's a website called miyuhealth.com, and when they design the website, they try to build a system to help people to be more healthy, to engage in health-related activity, exercise, etc. They identify 7 personas and also identify the motivation for these personas. They categorize the 7 personas into the following. One is aware and achieving. The other is me, time, impoverished. The third one is validation seeker. The third, and then enlightened and discovered, idle, excuse maker, and enable. Okay, let me kind of explain what those kind of categories of personas mean here. Aware and achieving. Aware and achieving guy is like who are very health conscious, go to the gym all the time and exercise, etc. So they're aware of health is important. They are kind of overachiever in this regard. The second, me time impoverished, like a mom with little kids, don't have time to herself and but do want to keep up with some healthy exercise. Okay. The third is validation seeker. Okay, I always say, well, does walking really help? I mean, does exercise really useful? And so they always look for some validations. Um, Enlighten and discover. People kind of are interested in knowing, hey, what are the useful, simple exercise that I can do to make me healthier, happier, etc. They're looking for those health tips. Idle, okay, people just doesn't want to do anything. You cannot get them excited about exercise. And the sixth persona is excuse maker. They always have I'm too busy, have work and have whatever, and don't have time to exercise. Okay, a little bit like the me time impoverished, but there may be the workaholic in this case. Enable. Enable who are people who actually needs a little bit of push and help to get them kind of started. So a personal coach or some kind of sponsor may help them to kind of moving in the right direction. Eventually, MeUHealth.com do have a website. They once developed something called Monumental mobile app to help you to climbing the steps, like climbing, simulating the climbing a monument, and with some kind of gaming feature. They also offer a service called Daily Challenge, which they send you a kind of daily health tip by email once you sign up as a member. And the daily challenge is really, really simple. You can almost get it done in a minute, like get out and walk for 1 minute type of things. Okay, which because they found out that if you make it too complicated, a lot of their personas, like listed here, will not be able to follow the instruction. Okay, remember here we don't have a specific name, but we can say John is aware and achieving person. Mary is time impoverished. Mom was a kids of 2 years old, etc. So here we list a number feature about this 7 persona. Okay, we're not going to go through this in detail. If you're interested, you can study this. Let's just take one persona, which is me, time, impoverished. Okay, and let's say Mary, who is a mom, the caregiver. He wants to see her kids to be successful. Okay, is feeling like a teen with spouse, looking after me instead of us, only when there's extra time, and want some occasionally pampering. Okay, so he kind of put the family before her. Okay, we identify some barrier for her to get into this kind of exercise movement. We do want to see what motivate her. Okay, another thing in this MeUHealth is actually they try to take advantage of the social network type of systems to engage a group of people in your social network to encourage each other to get into the kind of exercise mode. So therefore we have this My Social Network because of that. And then you also identify the needs for this persona. Okay, you can study this. You can pause the video and kind of study this a little bit. Here I got some sample template in PowerPoint slide. You feel free to customize it. You can probably even use a spreadsheet to document the persona if you wish. You will give the persona a name. You will identify the customer segment. This segment actually is referring to maybe like me, time, impoverished. Okay, And who are this persona? Attach your pictures here, okay, and include some sample quotations. Identify the goal. See, the goal and the pain points is important in persona. And if possible, identify the purchasing decision and the usage scenario for this persona. For example, Phillips is a classroom teacher, 28 years old, has been teaching 7th and 8th grade for 3 years, work at a medium-sized public school in a large social economics neighborhood. The quote is, I really want to make a difference in my school, and I want my superintendent to help me to make a difference in other schools as well. The goal is to highly artistic and creative. He wants his students to try new things, but is often frustrated by the lack of time and money to do so. Okay, and so here we list some purchasing decision. Okay, and certainly you would, once again, you would create a persona kind of based on how the persona will interact with your product and services. And so some of the information you capture in the template to document the persona has to be related to that. Okay, so someone's persona in designing their product may not be totally applicable to you. When you try to design the persona, come up with the persona in helping you to design your product and services. Here's another one, Monica. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but you can kind of study this a little bit. This may be a product related to kind of school software used by the school, or some kind of product that offered to the school. Here is a kind of quick comparison of customer profile and personas. We don't have time to go through this detail. You can kind of study a little bit. The difference may be a little bit subtle. Sometimes people do use the two terms interchangeably, but I do believe that customer profile and persona are different. Okay, some people build the customer profile without building persona, or use the persona without the customer profile. I would recommend that you will get some rough idea about your customer profile and then conduct some field study, and based on the field study data, then build a persona, then use the persona in your design team. The customer profile will help you with the customer sizing and the targeting issues, product targeting issue, but the persona will be very useful in the detailed design of the product and services. That's my take. You can study this table, follow this reference, and see what you think about the difference in customer profile and persona. But do remember, customer is number one. Always thinking about your customer, a paying customer eventually. And so using customer profile and persona is a way to bring the customer into your building, kind of to help your design team to keep them in mind in their design process. Okay, that's all. I hope you enjoyed this section. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.